Have you ever dreamed of a frosting so good it could make even a Monday feel like a party in your kitchen? My easy strawberry buttercream frosting makes that dream a reality. With fresh strawberries and creamy buttercream, it's perfect for cupcakes, cakes, or even sneaking a spoonful. No shame here. Let's whip up this sweet and berry-filled treat. I start by preparing 1.5 cups of fresh strawberries. First, wash the strawberries thoroughly to remove any dirt or residue. Then remove the stems and slice them thinly for easier blending. If you're like me, feel free to sneak a bite. The fresher, the better. Fresh strawberries are key here because their vibrant flavor and natural sweetness truly make this frosting shine. Once sliced, transfer the strawberries to a blender and blend until completely smooth. If you notice any stubborn chunks, use a silicone spatula to scrape down the sides of the blender and give it another whirl. Once blended, set the puree aside for later use. It's like bottling up summer sunshine to add to your frosting. Here's a tip. If your strawberries are particularly juicy, you can strain the puree through a fine mesh sieve for a smoother texture. Personally, I love keeping all the natural strawberry goodness intact for maximum flavor. If you're in a pinch, you can also use freeze-dried or frozen strawberries as an alternative. For freeze-dried strawberries, use about 1/2 cup and blend them into a fine powder to mix directly into the frosting for a burst of flavor and color. For frozen strawberries, measure out 1.5 cups, thaw, and drain them thoroughly, and then puree them just like fresh ones. Just be sure to remove any excess liquid to prevent the frosting from getting too thin. Now it's time to work on the buttercream base. First, I transfer 1 cup of room temperature butter to my large mixing bowl. I set up my trusty KitchenAid stand mixer with the whisk attachment. If you're using a hand mixer, that works just as well. I start by beating the butter on medium speed until it's smooth and creamy, then increase to high for a final whip to make it extra fluffy. Don't forget to scrape the butter from the sides of the bowl with a silicone spatula to make sure everything is evenly whipped. This step is so satisfying because it sets the foundation for a fluffy, dreamy frosting. Let's talk tools for a second. I'm using a KitchenAid stand mixer, a glass mixing bowl, silicone spatulas, and a blender for this recipe. These tools make everything smoother and more efficient, like having a kitchen dream team. But honestly, don't stress if you don't have the exact same setup. A hand mixer or even a trusty whisk can get the job done. Baking is all about improvising, enjoying the process, and maybe getting a little messy along the way. Because let's face it, powdered sugar explosions are practically a rite of passage. Once the butter is perfectly whipped, I start by adding 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. This step adds a warm, aromatic touch to the frosting and helps the flavors shine through. Then, I slowly incorporate 3½ cups of powdered sugar, 1 cup at a time. This gradual process ensures the sugar blends smoothly and prevents clumps, giving the frosting a velvety texture. I slowly start incorporating it, mixing well between each addition. Mix on low speed first, since right now we just want the ingredients to come together peacefully, unless you want your kitchen to look like a powdered sugar blizzard. Been there, not fun. I hope you're loving the process of making this sweet and berry-filled strawberry buttercream frosting as much as I am. If you're enjoying this recipe, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you'll never miss any of my fun baking adventures. Do you have a favorite frosting recipe or a creative twist you like to use? Maybe a family favorite that's been passed down through generations? I'd love for you to share it with me in the comments below. Let's swap ideas and keep the baking inspiration flowing. Here on my channel, I love blending food photography and baking, inviting you into my kitchen to share the joy of creating delicious treats. From perfecting frosting swirls to capturing mouth-watering recipes, I hope you feel inspired to bake something amazing too. Thanks for joining me on this frosting-filled adventure. Let's pipe that buttercream and make some beautiful desserts. Now comes the exciting part, incorporating the fresh strawberry puree. This is where the frosting gets its gorgeous pink hue and that irresistible berry flavor. I start by adding the strawberry puree slowly, alternating with the powdered sugar. Mixing on low speed ensures the ingredients blend together smoothly without overmixing or making the frosting too runny. Adding too much puree at once can make the frosting too thin. You'll want to stop adding puree once the frosting reaches your desired flavor and consistency. If the frosting starts looking a little too soft, simply mix in a bit more powdered sugar until it's back to a pipeable texture. After all the ingredients are combined, I turn my mixer on high for 8 to 10 minutes. The frosting is ready. When stiff peaks form on the tip of the whisk, it should hold its shape but still be light and airy. And let me tell you, the smell at this point, absolute heaven. When I mix in the powdered sugar and strawberry puree, I take my time and mix well between each addition. This is so important. because it helps the frosting turn out smooth and even. Trust me, if you dump all the sugar in at once, you're asking for trouble. Clumps, lumps, and a frustrating mess to fix. Plus, taking it slow keeps the mixer from puffing out a cloud of powdered sugar. Been there, done that, don't recommend. By adding it gradually, I can also keep an eye on the texture and sweetener, making sure the frosting is just right. Let's talk storage for this luscious strawberry buttercream frosting. On the counter, it's best to keep the frosting for no more than 1 to 2 hours, especially if your kitchen is warm. For longer storage, transfer the frosting to an airtight container and place it in the fridge. It'll stay fresh for up to a week. If you're planning ahead, you can even freeze it. Scoop the frosting into a freezer-safe bag or container, removing as much air as possible. Before sealing the bag, I like to label it with a Sharpie, noting the date and what's inside. Trust me, this small step is a lifesaver when your freezer starts looking like a treasure hunt. It'll keep in the freezer for up to 3 months. When you're ready to use the frosting, after freezing, simply thaw it overnight in the fridge. Once it's thawed, let it come to room temperature. Remember, the butter in the frosting needs time to soften for the best texture. Then give it a quick whip with a mixer to bring back its creamy, fluffy texture. It'll be as good as new, ready to spread or pipe onto your desserts. You know what's cool about strawberries? Their peak season in the USA is usually from April to June, but it depends on where you are. California grows about 90% of the nation's strawberries. Crazy, right? Florida is another big player, especially in the winter, and up in Oregon and Washington. They're famous for those super sweet and juicy summer strawberries. Here's something fun. Strawberries can taste a little different depending on where they're grown. California berries tend to be larger and firm with mild sweetness, making them great for shipping and snacking. Florida strawberries are often smaller and have a tart edge that's perfect for desserts. And those summer berries from Oregon and Washington, they're known for being super sweet and soft, almost like nature's candy. It's amazing how much the region can influence the flavor. Oh, and here's a fun little nugget. Strawberries love well-drained soil and lots of sunshine, which is why they thrive in those places. And get this, the average American eats around 8 pounds of strawberries a year. I mean, who can blame us? They're so good. You won't believe how versatile this frosting is. It's a total game changer. It's like the overachiever of the dessert world, good at everything and looking amazing while doing it. Use it to top cupcakes with dreamy swirls that scream, "Eat me now." Drizzle it over bundt cakes for that perfect glossy finish, or sandwich it between cookies for a sweet little surprise. Feeling adventurous? Dunk fresh fruit into it for a snack. So good it might ruin plain fruit forever. or go wild and slather it on pancakes, because life is too short for boring breakfasts. Yes, pancakes, because breakfast deserves to be fabulous too. Honestly, this frosting might just be your new best friend in the kitchen. If your frosting is too runny, don't panic. Start by adding a little more powdered sugar, about 1/4 cup at a time, and mixing until the frosting thickens to the desired consistency. Be careful not to add too much at once, as it can make the frosting overly sweet. On the flip side, if the frosting is too thick and feels difficult to spread or pipe, try adding a teaspoon of milk or heavy cream at a time. Mix thoroughly after each addition until it loosens up to the perfect texture. Here's a pro tip. If the frosting becomes too warm and starts to lose its shape, pop it in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes to firm up. This helps bring everything back together without overmixing. Once the frosting is ready, I transfer it to a pastry piping bag. I like to use larger 21-inch bags because they give me more room to work with. If the bag ends up being too long, I simply cut off the extra at the end. Easy fix and no hassle. After closing the bag, make sure it's secure and ready for piping to avoid any frosting surprises. This step always feels like the calm before the creative storm. I gently pipe the frosting onto cupcakes, swirling it into those iconic peaks. And if you're decorating a cake, smooth it over the layers for a stunning finish. To make these treats even more eye-catching, I love adding a little garnish. You can use leftover whole strawberries, sliced berries, or even a sprinkle of powdered sugar for that wow factor. It's the little details that make a big difference. Let me share a little personal trick I've picked up over the years for piping buttercream without creating chaos in the kitchen. First, I always hold the piping bag at the top with one hand to apply steady pressure. My other hand stays near the tip, guiding the flow of frosting for that perfect control. Here's the real game changer. Keep one hand at the very end of the bag, twisting it tightly to maintain tension. Trust me, this little trick is a lifesaver. Nobody wants a buttercream explosion to turn their piping session into a frosting fiasco. When you're ready to pipe, work in smooth, consistent motions. Start from the outside and swirl your way inward, lifting slightly at the end for those picture-perfect peaks. If you need to pause, release the pressure gently to avoid those awkward blobs that scream, "Oops!" And remember, practice makes perfect. If things get a bit messy, just call it a taste testing session. After all, the best part of frosting is sneaking a little extra. And there you have it. Homemade strawberry buttercream frosting. That's as delicious as it is beautiful. Now you can decorate your cupcakes. This buttercream pairs perfectly with chocolate cupcakes. I even have a video with this recipe. Chocolate strawberry cupcakes. So be sure to check that out for the ultimate pairing. This frosting is perfect for birthdays, brunches, or even just to brighten up an ordinary day. If you've enjoyed this recipe, make sure to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you'll never miss out on another fun and delicious baking adventure. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video.